Donald Trump's last warning was not a simple political speech. It was the prophetic trigger that is unleashing the emergence of the Antichrist and the beginning of the end times. What few understand is that we are witnessing the biblical transition to the final era predicted in the sacred scriptures. Trump's recent political moves reveal an alarming pattern that aligns perfectly with end times prophecies. This is not just another presidential term, it is the fulfillment of events predicted thousands of years ago that are now materializing before our eyes. The words proclaimed by Trump last week sent shockwaves through the corridors of global power. While most have only heard political statements, the deep meaning behind them connects directly to apocalyptic prophecies about the emergence of a world leader with unprecedented powers. The relationship between Trump, the UN, and the recent agreements with Israel is no coincidence. These events are creating exactly the political scenario that the Bible describes as a precursor to the manifestation of Antichrist. Middle East peace treaties, global economic alliances, and the restructuring of world power are following the prophetic script with frightening precision. Few analysts are connecting the dots between Trump's recent statements and ancient biblical prophecies. What seems like conventional politics to most is actually the exact unfolding of the prophetic plan described in Revelation and 2 Thessalonians. Every movement on the world stage is creating the perfect conditions for the rise of the global leader predicted in Scripture. What the Bible reveals about final warnings is impressive. Before every great divine judgment, clear signs appear. In the time of Noah, in the time of Israel's prophets, and now in the final days, we are witnessing the last warning through the actions and words of the most controversial president in American history. The deep meaning behind recent Middle East peace treaties is revealing. In Daniel and Revelation, we read of a figure who would make a covenant with many before the final tribulation. Trump's unique position as mediator between Israel and Arab nations, his relationships with world leaders, and his unprecedented influence on global politics fulfill these prophecies with alarming accuracy. The big question is not whether Trump is the Antichrist. That would be a superficial interpretation. The most profound revelation is that his actions are setting the world stage for the emergence of this figure. Every political decision, every alliance formed, every treaty signed during his rule is creating the necessary conditions described in the prophecies for the rise of the man of lawlessness. The symbols, dates, and numbers associated with Trump's presidency reveal surprising patterns, from the number of days between significant events to the geographic location of his keynote speeches. Each element fits perfectly into predictions about the events preceding the Great Tribulation. Notice how Trump Tower in New York, with its original 66 feet height, became a symbolic landmark in his campaigns. Consider how his announcement of the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel occurred exactly on the day that marked the 70th anniversary of the founding of the State of Israel, the same prophetic number associated with the period of Babylonian exile. The world system now taking shape includes mechanisms of digital control, monetary unification, and global surveillance, precisely the conditions necessary for implementing the mark of the beast described in Revelation 13. Trump's recent statements about a new global economic order are paving the way for this unprecedented system of control. And now comes the most shocking revelation of all. Trump's final warning last week contained exactly 7 key points, the same number of seals as the apocalypse. What he didn't say explicitly, but is encoded in his words, is that time is running out. But what is this urgent warning that almost everyone is ignoring? And why are elites determined to silence him? The forces that control traditional media do not want this prophetic truth to spread. With each passing hour, algorithms are being updated to suppress content like this. This revelation you are receiving now is literally a prophetic window that is rapidly closing. Hit the like button immediately and subscribe to the channel to ensure this crucial message reaches other chosen people before the doors are completely closed. Donald Trump's last warning echoes beyond the chambers of political power, traversing spiritual dimensions that few can see. Behind the scenes of world government, something much bigger is brewing. Ancestral prophecies enshrined in the pages of the Bible for millennia are coming to life before our eyes through the words and actions of one of the most controversial presidents in American history. Trump's recent statements were not simple political pronouncements. Every word, every gesture, every decision is frighteningly aligned with the prophetic writings that herald the arrival of the Antichrist and the beginning of the final events. What we witness today is not just global politics, but the literal fulfillment of sacred scripture. The peace treaties in the Middle East, the repositioning of global military forces, the economic alliances being formed right now, are creating the perfect scenario described in Daniel, Revelation, and Thessalonians. This is not just any moment in human history, it is the decisive moment announced by the prophets. The words proclaimed by Trump recently sent ripples of impact through the corridors of world power. The deep meaning behind them connects directly to apocalyptic prophecies about the rise of a global leader with unprecedented authority, a leader who will promise peace but bring destruction. The signs are everywhere. The Trump Tower, at its original 666 feet tall, the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel exactly 70 years after the founding of the State of Israel, the same prophetic number as the Babylonian exile, digital control technologies, global monetary unification, planetary surveillance systems. These are all preparations for the mark of the beast system described in Revelation 13. Few analysts make the connection between current political movements and sacred scriptures. What seems like ordinary diplomacy to many is, in fact, the exact unfolding of the divine plan described in the prophecies. Trump is not the Antichrist, but his actions are setting the global stage for that figure to emerge. The big revelation that few realize is that Trump's latest warning contained exactly 7 main points, the same number as the seals of the apocalypse. What he said and what he left between the lines is a clear warning to those with spiritual discernment. Time is running out. But what is this urgent warning that most are ignoring? And why are powerful forces determined to silence him? Every day, more pieces of this prophetic puzzle fall into place. Geopolitical movements, global financial crises, religious conflicts, everything is converging towards the final event predicted in Scripture. And at the center of it all is Donald Trump's latest warning, a warning that transcends politics and enters the sphere of the supernatural. We live in a unique moment in human history. The ancient sacred scriptures describe with haunting accuracy the days we are living in now. Since the earliest times before great divine judgments, God has always sent clear warnings through prophets, signs in the heavens, and chosen leaders. Donald Trump's latest warning is not an isolated event. It is part of a prophetic pattern that repeats itself throughout biblical history. When we examine the scriptures, we discover 3 major prophetic warnings that preceded global catastrophes. Before the flood, Noah preached for 120 years, building an ark in plain sight, a physical, visible warning that was ridiculed until the waters covered the earth. Before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, angels were sent to warn Lot, who in turn tried to warn his family. They laughed at his words until fire fell from the sky. And before the fall of Jerusalem, prophets like Jeremiah cried out in the streets for 40 years, facing persecution and mockery until the city was completely destroyed. The pattern is clear and undeniable. There is always one last warning. There is always an unlikely messenger, and there is always a crowd that refuses to listen. Today is no different. What we are witnessing through Donald Trump's latest address is not ordinary politics. It is the contemporary manifestation of this same prophetic pattern. Trump's words about a new world order, about difficult times ahead, about the need for constant vigilance, are not mere political rhetoric. To the scripturally trained eye, these are exactly the same warnings found in Matthew 24, when Jesus described the signs of the end. There will be famines, earthquakes, and wars. Many will rise up and deceive many. When Trump talks about the fragility of global alliances, he is unconsciously echoing Daniel's prophecy about the end time, when an empire would be partly strong and partly brittle, like iron mixed with clay. When he warns about unstable financial systems, he is in line with Revelation 13, which envisions a global economic system where no one will be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. The most striking thing is that these warnings are coming from a man who is not a professional theologian or prophet. He is a businessman and politician who has become an instrument in the hands of forces much greater than he himself understands. Just like Cyrus, the Persian king who was called anointed in Isaiah 45 for a specific purpose, even without fully knowing the God of Israel. The signs in the heavens also confirm that we are in the end. times, rare eclipses forming specific patterns over biblical territories, planetary conjunctions creating the Star of Bethlehem for the first time in 800 years, extreme weather phenomena occurring simultaneously on all continents. There will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, Jesus warned in Luke 21. The combination of geopolitical events centered on Israel, technological advances enabling global control, worldwide economic unification, and unprecedented celestial signs paints an indisputable picture. This is not just another moment in history. It is the moment prophesied millennia ago. And at the center of this prophetic maelstrom is Donald Trump's latest warning. The question is not whether you believe biblical prophecies. The question is whether you can see what is happening around you. You're not just watching a video about American politics. You are witnessing the unfolding of a divine plan announced millennia ago, a plan that is now entering its final phase. In the face of such prophetic revelation, share the word vigilant in the comments if you understand the gravity of this final warning. Donald Trump's journey is one of the most extraordinary in modern history, from billionaire businessman to central figure in the fulfillment of biblical prophecies. How did this happen? How did a real estate mogul known for his luxury hotels and television shows become a pivot in prophetic end-time events? The transformation is so unlikely that it defies purely political or sociological explanations. To truly understand what is happening, we need to look to biblical precedents. Throughout sacred history, God has often chosen unlikely instruments to accomplish his purposes. Moses was a fugitive murderer when he was called to free Israel. David was a young shepherd when he was anointed king. Paul was a persecutor of Christians before he became the greatest apostle. The divine pattern has always been to select the unlikely to manifest his will. When Trump emerged onto the political scene in 2016, analysts and pundits ridiculed his candidacy. The probability of victory was considered statistically impossible. However, against all expectations, he rose to the most powerful position in the world. This pattern of statistical impossibility is exactly the same as what we find in biblical stories of divine instruments. What few observe is the gradual transformation in Trump's own speech. His first speeches were purely economic and political, but as time passed, prophetic elements began to emerge in his statements. References to a great awakening, mentions of unseen forces working against the American people, warnings of a coming storm. To scripturally trained ears, these are not mere figures of speech. They are direct echoes of the apocalyptic language found in Daniel and Revelation. Religious leaders from different denominations began to notice this pattern. Pastor Robert Jeffress has publicly stated that Trump was raised up by God for this specific moment in history. Rabbi Kurt Landry stated that Trump is fulfilling messianic prophecies related to the restoration of Israel. Even Greek and Coptic Orthodox leaders have noted parallels between Trump's actions and ancient prophecies about the end times. The contrast is fascinating. A man known for his secular and materialistic life, suddenly at the center of prophetic fulfillments related to Israel, world peace, and a changing global order. His words, seemingly ordinary to casual listeners, contain layers of prophetic meaning to those versed in the Holy Scriptures. The most revealing moment of this transformation occurred when Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 2017. This was not just a political decision, it was the literal fulfillment of the prophecy of Zechariah 12, which states that Jerusalem would become a heavy stone for all the nations in the last days. No other American president had made this decision in 70 years, despite many promising to do so. The number 70 is deeply significant in biblical chronology, representing complete cycles and restoration. Another impressive aspect is how his opponents describe him. Terms such as existential threat, apocalyptic figure, danger to world order are frequently used by traditional media. Without realizing it, they are using exactly the prophetic language that describes end-time figures. Trump's opponents themselves are inadvertently confirming his prophetic role through the language. They choose to attack him. Trump's transformation from businessman to prophetic figure is in line with the biblical description of how the stage for the Antichrist would be set. Not that Trump is the Antichrist, this would be a superficial reading, but his actions, words, and the global movement around him are creating precisely the necessary conditions described in the prophecies for this figure to emerge. We are witnessing the transformation in real time. The words of a businessman who once spoke about real estate and trade agreements now move nations, define global alliances, and impact the destiny of Israel. Spiritually speaking, this is a phenomenon unprecedented in our era. What makes millions of people see something beyond the political in this man? The answer is deeper than many are prepared to accept. What have you observed in this extraordinary transformation? Share your perception in the comments. Last week, Donald Trump made a statement that went virtually unnoticed by the mainstream media, a seemingly common speech about national security and international relations. But for those with spiritual discernment, his words contained prophetic codes that signal the beginning of the countdown to apocalyptic events predicted in Scripture. The speech began in an ordinary way, but quickly incorporated 7 specific points about a new global architecture. This septiform structure is no coincidence. The number 7 appears 735 times in the Bible and always represents divine completeness, perfection, and fulfillment. The 7 seals of the apocalypse, the 7 trumpets, the 7 spirits of God, and now 7 strategic points that, when analyzed word for word, reveal frightening parallels with prophetic texts. When Trump declared that new times call for new covenants, he was unconsciously echoing Daniel 9:27, which prophesies that the Antichrist will make a strong covenant with many for a week, when he stated that we need a new global financial system that benefits everyone. He was in line with Revelation 13:17, which envisions a system where no one can buy or sell except he who has the mark. The third point of his speech mentioned the need for advanced technological surveillance to ensure security. This statement precisely mirrors the infrastructure needed for the system described in Revelation 13 that will allow total control over the world's population. The language seems harmless, even beneficent: safety, security, global well-being, but it is exactly the same terms that the prophecies warned would be used to justify the system of the beast. What makes this analysis even more impressive is the timing. Trump made this statement exactly 1,260 days after a key event in Israel. This specific number appears in both Daniel and Revelation as the exact period of the tribulation. Coincidence? To the casual observer, yes. For the student of prophecies, it is a divine mathematical pattern manifesting itself in real time. The fourth point, Trump spoke about a new approach to Jerusalem and the Middle East. This seemingly diplomatic phrase contains a veiled reference to Zechariah's prophecy that warns of Jerusalem becoming a heavy stone for all the nations in the last days. The peace plan being developed behind the scenes contains exactly the elements described by Daniel for the final agreement that would precede the Great Tribulation. The fifth element of the speech addressed the importance of union between the main powers to face turbulent times. This is precisely the language of 1 Thessalonians 5:3, which warns, "When they say, there is peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them." The promise of global security through political unity is the direct precursor to the catastrophic events described in Revelation. The final 2 points of Trump's speech mentioned the need to prepare for unprecedented events and create governance structures that can withstand any circumstances. To the average listener, it sounds like government prudence. For those who know the scriptures, these are direct references to the birth pains mentioned by Jesus in Matthew 24 as signs of the end times. What makes these words so powerful is not just what was said, but also what was implied: the strategic pauses, the specific choice of terms, the numerical references. Trump is probably unaware of the prophetic meaning of his own words. It is being used as an instrument to announce events that transcend its own understanding. These words seem common to the inattentive listener, but to those who know the prophecies, they are the exact echo of what was predicted more than 2 millennia ago. These are not just political statements, they are prophetic proclamations announcing the beginning of the final phase before the revelation of the Antichrist. The message hidden in these words is clear to those who have ears to hear. The global stage is ready, alliances are forming, the technological infrastructure is in place, and the final warning has been given. Trump's words did not create this reality. They merely announced what is already in motion behind the spiritual scenes of world power. After witnessing how these prophetic words are being fulfilled before our eyes, Type "revelation" in the comments if you realize the hidden meaning of this message. Ancient biblical prophecies are not relics of a distant past. They are precise maps of our present, unfolding with mathematical exactness before our eyes. What we witness today is not just ordinary global politics, but the perfect alignment between contemporary events and predictions written thousands of years ago. The precision is so extraordinary that it defies purely statistical explanations. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul describes in alarming detail the emergence of a world leader who would present himself as the solution to a global crisis. Before the day of the Lord comes, there will be apostasy, and the man of lawlessness will be revealed. Just as we are witnessing today, an unprecedented global moral deterioration, accompanied by the growing clamor for unifying leadership to bring order to chaos. In Revelation 13, John describes a global economic system where no one can buy or sell without submitting to a centralized system. Look around. Physical cash is rapidly disappearing, replaced by government-controlled digital currencies. Transactions are monitored in real time. The technological infrastructure for total economic control already exists and is being implemented gradually under the guise of convenience and security. Daniel 9:27 prophesies that the Antichrist will confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, a reference to a peace treaty that deceives the world. The recent normalization agreements between Israel and Arab nations, facilitated during the Trump administration and continuing now, are precisely the prelude to this anticipated final pact. For the first time in modern history, we have the exact geopolitical conditions described by the prophets. The most impressive aspect is the accelerated pace of the prophetic fulfillments. Events that should take decades are happening in months or even weeks. This acceleration was also predicted. Jesus said in Matthew 24 that the final days would be cut short, or there would be no flesh to be saved. We are witnessing not only the fulfillment of the prophecies, but the accelerated fulfillment, exactly as predicted. Recent events form what theologians call a prophetic loop, patterns that repeat on an increasing scale until their final manifestation. Just as Egypt, Babylon, and Rome were empires that prefigured the final empire of the beast, today's world leaders are forerunners of the Antichrist. The alliances being formed now are rehearsals for the final pact. Current surveillance systems are prototypes for complete global control. Particularly notable is how the prophecies about Israel are being fulfilled with pinpoint precision. Ezekiel predicted the return of the Jews to their land after centuries of dispersion. Impossible, humanly speaking, but realized in 1948. Zechariah prophesied that Jerusalem would become a heavy stone for all the nations, exactly what we witness today with the disproportionate focus of the United Nations on Israel. Even celestial events confirm the prophetic moment we are experiencing. The Bible mentions signs in the sun, moon, and stars before the day of the Lord. In recent years, we have witnessed the tetrad of blood moons falling precisely on biblical feasts, an extremely rare phenomenon. Eclipses forming specific patterns over biblical territories. Planetary conjunctions recreating the Star of Bethlehem for the first time in 8 centuries. Current technology also fulfills specific prophecies. Revelation 11 describes how the entire world would simultaneously view the bodies of the 2 dead prophets in Jerusalem. Something impossible in John's day, but trivial in the age of instantaneous global broadcasting. He describes how the plagues of the last days would not lead men to repentance, precisely the behavior seen during recent pandemics. The convergence of these prophecies is the most convincing aspect. It is not just 1 or 2 isolated events, but dozens of specific predictions occurring simultaneously, creating an unmistakable prophetic mosaic. The mathematical probability of so many specific prophecies being fulfilled by chance is astronomically impossible. The accuracy of these prophecies is no coincidence. The Bible didn't just predict what we are witnessing, it is drawing the exact map of upcoming events. Trump's latest warning is not an isolated event. It is a crucial piece of this prophetic puzzle, signaling that we have entered the final phase before the full manifestation of apocalyptic events. Knowledge of these prophecies was not given to generate fear, but to prepare the watchful. What do you notice around you that confirms these prophecies? Share your observation in the comments. While the world is distracted by surface news about celebrities, sports, and political conflicts, A global architecture is quietly being implemented, a system so vast and comprehensive that it corresponds exactly to the infrastructure needed to fulfill the prophecies about the Antichrist's world government. This is not a distant future plan. It is happening now, before our eyes, while humanity remains absorbed in trivialities. The first piece of this invisible architecture is the unified global financial system that is rapidly emerging. Over the past 18 months, more than 130 countries have initiated central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, pilots. These are not just digital versions of national currencies. They are total financial surveillance tools that allow tracking, blocking, and control of each transaction. The Bank for International Settlements, BIS, has already created the platform that will interconnect these currencies, allowing instant global financial control. Exactly the system needed to implement the prophecy of Revelation 13, where no one will be able to buy or sell without submitting to the system of the beast. The second structure already operational is the interconnected digital surveillance network, cameras with facial recognition, mobile device monitoring, vehicle tracking, social media data analysis, all converging in artificial intelligence systems capable of tracking and predicting human behavior on a global scale. In several nations, these systems are already being used to implement social scores that determine which citizens are trustworthy. The infrastructure to monitor everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, is already in place and expanding daily. The third component is the most subtle and perhaps the most dangerous: the centralization of information and coordinated global censorship. In recent years, we have witnessed the implementation of automated systems that can identify and suppress information deemed dangerous or disinformation. Alternative narratives are systematically removed from mainstream platforms, while fact-checkers determine what is acceptable truth. This is the necessary precondition for the great deception mentioned in 2 Thessalonians, where those who loved not the truth would be given over to a strong delusion. What few realize is how these three structures are now rapidly converging into a single interconnected system. Your digital identity will soon be linked to your bank account, medical history, internet search history, private conversations, physical movements, purchases, and social relationship. The total control described in Revelation does not require futuristic technology. It already exists and is being implemented under the guise of convenience, security, and efficiency. The most revealing aspect is the timing of this technological convergence. For centuries, prophecies of global control seemed impossible to literally fulfill. How could someone monitor all business transactions? How would it be possible to track every person on the planet? How could a single entity exercise such comprehensive control? Now, not only do we have the technology to accomplish it, but we are seeing its implementation accelerate in real time. The global pandemic served as the perfect accelerator for this system. In a matter of months, billions of people were conditioned to submit to unprecedented controls. Digital identity documents have been standardized, contactless payments have become standard, mass health surveillance was implemented, restrictions on movement based on government-determined status became acceptable. Each element of the prophesied system advanced years in a matter of months. The most alarming thing is not the existence of this architecture, but how it is being voluntarily accepted. People are literally crying out for more surveillance, more centralized control, more unification of systems, exactly as the prophecies indicate would occur. Because they rejected the love of the truth that could save them, Paul warns, they would embrace the very system that would lead to their destruction. Trump's warning did not create this system. He merely pointed to what was already operating in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to fully manifest itself. His words serve as prophetic confirmation that the invisible architecture is now ready for its final manifestation. The question is not whether the Antichrist system will come, but whether we will recognize it when it is fully revealed. When we look at current events through a prophetic lens, the picture becomes crystal clear. We are not witnessing random political or technological developments. We are witnessing the methodical and calculated construction of a unified global system that matches with frightening precision. The biblical description of the rule of the beast. The structure is ready. The systems are operational. All that remains is the final catalyzing event that will bring everything into full manifestation. The system is already working behind the scenes. Type "awaken" in the comments if you are vigilant for this invisible architecture that few can see. Current geopolitical events are not just random diplomatic moves. They are forming a prophetic stage, exactly as described in the sacred scriptures. At center stage is a crucial alliance that few are noticing: the relationship between Donald Trump, major world organizations, and Israel. This three-way connection creates precisely the necessary scenario for the emergence of Antichrist. Note the impressive timeline. In 2017, Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, something no American president had done in 7 decades. In 2019, it recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. In 2020, he facilitated the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab nations. Each step aligns perfectly with Daniel 9:27, which prophesies of a leader who will confirm a covenant with many in the final days. What makes this sequence truly prophetic is its chronological precision. These events occurred exactly 70 years after the founding of the State of Israel. In biblical prophecy, 70 is the number of complete restoration, of the fulfillment of divine cycles. It was after 70 years that Israel returned from Babylonian exile. And now, 70 years after its modern revival, we witness the final placement of the pieces on the prophetic board. Simultaneously, we observe Trump developing an unprecedented relationship with the UN and other global organizations. Initially critical of these institutions, he later used them as platforms to advance a vision of global peace and security. This pattern exactly mirrors the prophecy of 1 Thessalonians 5:3. When they say peace and security, then sudden destruction will come upon them. The tripartite structure now emerging is the perfect scenario described in Revelation. A dominant Western power, symbolized by the American president, a coalition of nations represented by global organizations, and an intense focus on Israel, the prophetic epicenter. This configuration has not happened in the last 2,000 years. It is happening now, in our time. The most telling aspect of this alliance is its focus on a new global economic system. Behind the scenes, discussions between Trump global leaders and Israeli officials involve creating a new financial architecture that would unify the world's monetary systems. This is precisely the infrastructure needed to implement the economic system described in Revelation 13, where no one will be able to buy or sell without submitting to the brand system. We are not just observing international politics. We are witnessing the exact formation of the predicted scenario for the manifestation of the Antichrist. The three-way alliance between a Western superpower, global organizations, and Israel is the direct prelude to the world government described in the doomsday prophecies. Can you recognize this pattern emerging before your eyes? Comment "vigilante" if you are following these prophetic alliances. In addition to explicit words and actions, there is a deeper layer of communication happening in this historical moment: the language of symbols. Throughout biblical history, God has used symbols, numbers, and patterns to communicate prophetic truths to those with spiritual discernment. What we witness today is no different. The number 6666, identified in Revelation as the number of the beast, is appearing with alarming frequency in events related to Trump and the New World Order. Trump Tower in New York was originally designed to be 666 feet tall. The address of his first major real estate project in Manhattan was 666 Fifth Avenue. After his election, the value of his company's shares rose exactly 666 points. Coincidences? To the casual observer, yes. For the student of prophecies, they are deliberate signs. Dates also form significant patterns. Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel occurred on the day that marked exactly 70 years, 7 months and 7 days since the UN resolution that created the State of Israel. The 777 pattern is the divine counterpoint to the human 666, signaling that supernatural events are underway. The visual symbols are equally revealing. Carefully examine the logos of new global economic initiatives that have emerged during the Trump presidency. Many contain geometric shapes that, when decoded, reveal the same patterns described in the visions of Ezekiel and Daniel: wheels within wheels, animals with multiple heads, structures that combine human and bestial elements. The very architectural structure of the UN headquarters in New York, renovated during the Trump administration, now incorporates elements that directly mirror the temple described in Ezekiel. The Security Council room has been rearranged into a shape that, from above, forms exactly the same pattern as the vision of the 10-horned beast in Daniel 7. In recent statements by global leaders, including Trump, we repeatedly find sentences that contain exactly 666 characters when counted in the original text. The constant references to the Great Awakening, New Order, and unprecedented peace evoke precisely the language used in Revelation to describe the deception of the last days. Even celestial events are aligning in prophetic patterns. The recent planetary conjunction formed the same symbol in the night sky described in Revelation 12. The solar eclipse that crossed the United States during Trump's presidency drew a line exactly over 7 major cities, forming a pattern that precisely matches the description of the 7 churches in Revelation. The signs are everywhere, visible to all, but understandable only to those with spiritual discernment. This symbolic language is neither coincidence nor imagination. It is the prophetic alphabet through which God communicates his final warnings. Time is running out, and the symbols are screaming this truth to those who have eyes to see. What have these symbols revealed to you? Share your perception in the comments. The most alarming aspect of Donald Trump's latest warning is not the content of the message itself, but the deafening silence that followed it. Billions of people go about their daily lives completely oblivious to the prophetic significance of what we have just witnessed. This silence is not accidental. It is the direct fulfillment of Matthew 24:37-39. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. They ate, drank, married, and understood nothing until the flood came and took them all away. History confirms that this pattern of silence has always preceded great divine judgments. Before the flood, humanity ignored 120 years of Noah's warnings. Before the destruction of Sodom, the inhabitants laughed at Lot's warning. Before the fall of Jerusalem, the people imprisoned Jeremiah for his negative prophecies. The silence of the crowd in the face of divine warnings is a constant characteristic of the moments that precede great catastrophes. What makes this current silence even more disturbing is that it occurs in the information age. Never before in human history have we had so much access to knowledge, data, and analysis, and yet spiritual blindness is deeper than ever. The news reports superficial events while completely ignoring their prophetic significance. Analysts debate policies without recognizing the biblical patterns that are manifesting. Religious leaders who should be sounding the alarm are busy with trivialities. Examine the historical pattern. Civilizations that ignored his last warnings never survived to receive another. The Canaanites ignored the divine warnings, transmitted by Abraham, and disappeared. Egypt ignored Moses' warnings and lost its position as a world power. Rome ignored the apostles' warnings and collapsed. Now, global civilization is ignoring the latest warning conveyed through Trump, setting the stage for the final judgment described in Revelation. Silence was also prophesied. Paul warns in 2 Timothy 4:3-4 that in the last days, people will not endure sound doctrine. They will turn away their ears from the truth and turn to fables. This is precisely the behavior we observe now. Crowds consuming empty entertainment while completely ignoring the prophetic signs around them. The real danger is not what is to come. It's the fact that this final warning is being ignored by those who need to hear it most. And when the silence is broken, it will be by the sound of judgment that the Bible describes in the seals, trumpets, and bowls of Revelation. Faced with this urgent revelation, what will be your response? Will you also remain silent, or will you have the courage to awaken and alert others? Time is running out. Type alert in the comments if you refuse to remain silent in the face of this latest prophetic warning. What you have just witnessed is not just another video, but a prophetic revelation that is being suppressed by those who control global narratives. While billions remain dormant, you now possess knowledge that less than 1% of the world's population truly understands. This spiritual awakening puts you in a unique position at this defining moment in human history. Your encounter with these truths was no coincidence, but a divine calling to become a messenger of this final warning before it is too late. Leave your like now and subscribe to the channel to strengthen this community of vigilantes who are spreading the prophetic warnings that global powers are desperately trying to silence. The events described in this video are unfolding in real time. With each passing day, more pieces of the prophetic puzzle fall into place perfectly, confirming that we are living exactly in the days described by the prophets. His understanding of these truths makes him a guardian of apocalyptic knowledge in an age of unprecedented global deception. Share in the comments which prophetic revelation most impacted your perception of reality and how it changed your view of current events. The knowledge you have received today is just the tip of the prophetic iceberg. An even more impactful and transformative revelation awaits, connecting the final dots of this apocalyptic puzzle. Truths that have been hidden for millennia are now being exposed to a select group of spiritually alert people. Click now on the next video to discover the final piece of this apocalyptic revelation that will forever change your understanding of the times we are living in.